Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. Hold on for a long ride. I've had arthritis since I was a teenager. I tried not to take painkillers early on, as I know it can be a vicious cycle, having to increase the dosage all the time. However, I've gotten to the point of no choice anymore. The pain makes me cry when I wake up, and that's the ever-increasing dosages. I've had 3 joint replacement surgeries, L-hip, R-knee, WAR shoulder, and require the other 3 surgeries. Not to mention my spine is full of arthritis and degenerating discs. So my pain meds are very necessary. A little more background, sorry. So I live in a basement apartment. I have chairlift. Last year, I had new neighbors move in. They seemed like a nice couple. Offered to help me out when I needed to. I was paying them to help clean and such, but I stopped when I found I was paying for them and not much was getting done. Not to mention that they owe me money they borrowed. I know, I'm stupid. And they're half of cable for the last year. Oh, and I'm letting them drive my car right now because I can't yet and I didn't want it sitting. I know. So in February, I noticed that I was missing pain meds, a lot of pain meds. I was lucky my doctor was understanding, but I still got shorted about 10 days out of 60 days, as I had a 2-month supply. I couldn't accuse anyone because I couldn't prove it and maybe I did make a mistake, but I was sure I was right. Anyway, that made me have to go through a total reverse shoulder replacement surgery without my proper meds. Not a happy camper. On to the other day, I was supposed to have an appointment with my physiotherapist, and I guess I messed up the date and asked if they would pick me up. I got home and I noticed my pill bottle wasn't how I left it, and there was a pill on the floor. I lost it. I called them and said I want them back. Didn't even deny it, just put the little bag they filled and said, sorry, I hurt my back. I said, first, if you did hurt yourself, changing my sheets, I have a really hard time, and they were using my car. You could have at least asked. Then I looked around and realized they still had a lot more. So I said the rest were my keys back. Got another handful, but I know they have more. I'm sorry, but where do you get off stealing someone's medication? I'm so beyond pissed, but worse, I'm hurt at this entitlement. I've done so much for them to be treated like this. Well, if you've been following the adventure, I had my confrontation a few minutes ago. I'm a heartless old bitch for asking for my cable boxes back as well as my car keys. Okay, so here's what happened. I got a phone call from my neighbor, stating they were at Subway and did I want a sub on them. At first I said yes, but then what I wanted wasn't available in between the call of would you like a sub and the call. They don't have that. Do you want something else? It clicked that they were driving my car, which they were only going to use to take their kid to school. I said no, nothing thanks. My daughter was on the other line and said, get your keys back now. I waited until they got home and then I texted, I assume you're in my car. I want my door latch and my keys back. Well, the door wouldn't latch, but the landlord's coming tomorrow. Got my keys back. I had asked the husband to latch the door and he said, oh, now you want help from me. I said yes because I don't want you to be able to come down. Of course it wouldn't latch, but the snarky comment pissed me off. So this is where I got nasty and said I want my cable boxes and Wi-Fi and phone back. We were splitting it. I said splitting it means both parties actually pay. Now I'm the monster that took Wi-Fi away from his kid. Now the guilt trip. All the things we've done for you for free. I said free with the $2,700 I'm going to have to eat and everything you stole, plus what? Car rental. How is this free? Anyway, the landlord is coming tomorrow to sort things out and fix my door. And he's selling at the end of the month. He's recommending me to the new owners. Hopefully I don't have to move because I can't afford it. I'm shaking right now and the future looks scary. I'm broke and was counting on him finally paying me back. With my daughter being so sick, it really sucks right now. I'd love to move back home to be there for her now. Anybody knows where to post a GoFundMe campaign for a cancer patient in need. Stressed to the core now, been up since 3 a.m. after a 2-hour sleep. I wish this would just go away. Thanks and take care. We'll update if necessary. Hi everyone, I'm French. So my English may be bad. I'm sorry for this. I am 21 years old and I filed a complaint against my grandfather for serious offenses. I won't go into detail, but it concerns pedo acts, 2 months ago already. I put a front handrail against him, and I cut ties 3 years ago, but a lot of things, stories, came to the surface. First, my parents argue more and more often. My grandfather is my father's father, and even though he believes me, my father is completely devastated. I even saw him cry for the first time while we were at the police station. He sees a psychologist, but I can see that he is sometimes in denial and that his father will recognize the facts, as he did 3 years ago. But I learned that my grandfather had denied everything, and it made me so nauseous that I told myself it was all my fault. My grandfather also emotionally blackmailed my little sister. She filed a complaint against him. But today she's broken. She's 15. She's growing. She won't stop standing up to my mother who can't take it anymore. My mother had to deal with a lot of trauma for 25 years because she came from an abusive family, and when she met my father, she saw what her future stepfather was, someone perverse and narcissistic who saw in my father a rival because he could not stand that my father succeeded in life. Nobody believed my mother when she said what she thought about my grandfather. Even my father, but I don't blame him. Who would believe that their own father is an a-hole? She even had to apologize on her wedding day to her in-laws for saying the facts. That's what she told me, and I no longer feel guilty for filing a complaint against him. However, I can't help my father, who is completely idle. He told me that his father should be punished, but he asked me one day, was it all wrong? Did he have no love for us? Was it only interesting? I told him that I didn't know and that I didn't want to believe that there was only interest. Before all this, my grandfather had confided in me a lot, saying that his ex-wife, he never remarried, had cheated on him, etc., and that he suffered a lot. My mother told me it wasn't true and that he had been horrible to my grandmother, as he was to his son. He pampered his 2 daughters, but my mother told me that he had a desire for them. As he was perverted to me, I think he was perverted to other women. And today I learned that some of my family members support him. My aunt, daughter of my grandfather, thinks it was my parents who handled the whole affair, and that I was never abused by her father. She keeps calling them to insult them, especially my mother, while saying that she likes me. I do not know what that means. My parents tell me that she supports me, but why call them and insult them by shouting that they manipulated me? My mother called me one day asking if I could call my great-aunt, family authority, to explain the situation. But I said no, because she had supported him when my mother told her at the time that he was weird around women. So why not now? Another great-aunt called my parents saying we should do a forgiveness and healing retreat with my grandfather. My mother said to him, "You want us to have a retreat with the tormentor of my daughters?" And my great-aunt replied, "You're going a little strong, it's not so bad." When I found out about this, it made me angry. I feel like my family is falling apart. These people think that my parents are manipulating me and that I'm just a fragile girl who believes everything. All the time I was still in contact with them, they never stopped criticizing my mother behind my back, and today, for them, she is the bad guy, with my father in the mix. My father tries to reason with his sister, my aunt who insults my parent, but every call he makes, he ends up in tears. The rest of my family members are unaware of all this commotion. My grandfather took the opportunity to try to keep our friends and cousins away. My godmother even told my mother that he said we were angry at everyone, which is not true. I'm angry at him and his 2 sisters who support him. I'm so angry that I'm itching to call them and speak my mind, but I don't think that's the right solution. I am disgusted. I come from a believing and Christian family, so for us, a united family was the basis. But I see clearly that life will not offer me this chance. I am completely helpless. This family that claimed to be united was, in fact, full of lies. I can't even get a taste for life anymore. I want to die. My parents argue, my sister seems to hate me. The teenage crisis may have something to do with it, but I think there's something else, too. All because of my grandfather, who didn't know how to be when he was offered this chance. Only my aunt contacts me sometimes, but only to give me a gift for my little brother, because she is his godmother. I don't know if I should block her or not. My mother told me to do it. I'm angry, but I don't want to feel hatred. I do not know what to do. 4 days ago, I made my account and contemplated asking if I was an AH for something. My half-sister, HS, had called me crying, saying our mother kicked her out and she really needs her sister. I hung up the first time, and when she kept calling and texting, I told her we're not actually sisters and I wasn't driving 6 hours to pick her up nor letting her stay with me. I've been getting nonstop texts and calls from my maternal family since then. My maternal grandmother, the only person I stayed in any contact with, pretty much begged me to be a good sister and let HS stay with me. She told HS I have my own house, gave her my number, etc. I blocked my grandmother, and everyone's saying that I should be understanding because we've both been abandoned by our mother. It isn't the same. I told my grandmother this, but no one seems willing to acknowledge that. For context, HS and I are exactly 9 months apart in age. She's the product of an affair, and my dad stayed with my biological mother, BM, until I was 5 and told him she kept bringing a man around when he wasn't home, her affair partner, AP, and his biological dad. Dad divorced BM and gave her the house in exchange for removing his name from HS's birth certificate. DM lost custody of me when I was 8 after abandoning me because AP didn't want to bring a child that wasn't his to family gatherings. Dad tried to keep it civil so I could have a relationship with HS, but she was a mini EP and never viewed me as a sister. I didn't like being around her, so my dad never forced me to. DM, AP, and HS moved not long after this. BM had been in childcare and lost her job because no one wants to hire you to watch their kids when you abandon yours in the middle of the night. I haven't seen HS in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like until I came home today. She was sitting on my porch with a suitcase and a car. I think my grandmother's pulled off as soon as I parked. I didn't get out of the car. I was too angry to even move, and I'm still angry right now. She kept saying she needs me and started crying, telling me that our mom was awful, her dad cut contact, and BM's niece doesn't want her in his house. I live next door to my dad, so when he started knocking on my car window after I just stared at her, I called him and told him what was going on and asked what I should do. Dad told me to stay in my car and call the cops, saying I had a trespasser, which I did. I didn't get out until the cops came, and when they did, HS told them I agreed to let her stay, and now I'm leaving her homeless. I just showed them the texts, specifically the only text I gave in response to everyone demanding you let her stay. No to you having the space. No to she's your sister. No to can she please stay with you. Nothing but refusals before I blocked people. When she kept saying we're sisters, I told the cops I haven't seen this woman in 17 years. I don't know her. I didn't even know what she looked like. We're not family beyond sharing an egg donor. I went as far as unblocking my grandmother and calling her. I didn't even get to speak. She yelled, "Look, Op, I love you, but you need to get over this. She's family, and she needs you, and I've told your father you'd go to hell if he raised you to be so damn selfish, and you definitely will, because she's going through the same thing you went through." She hung up right after, and I told the cops they can book HS or drop her at a shelter. I don't care. I just want her off my property. They took her, and now I'm sitting here on my dad's couch wondering what the hell just happened. He doesn't want me staying alone right now in case I show back up. I'm so pissed right now, I don't get it. 17 damn years of no contact. I only speak to my grandmother on holidays. I don't know most of the aunts and uncles and cousins that blew up my phone, but because BM pushed me out, I have to do what they tell me to. I'm 25 years old. I've only had my dad and my paternal family for years. DM and her family haven't done crap for me. None of them even know when my damn birthday is because even my grandmother texts me on the wrong day. Not even a phone call. If HS needs help so badly, one of you should help her. I don't know her. I don't know any of you either. I'm not letting an entire stranger into my house. And 6 hours is too far to visit when I had surgery, but not too far to try and force me to do something. Update. For clarity to new people. HS, maternal half-sister. DM, biological mother. DM's mother, maternal grandmother. RO, restraining order. TO, no trespassing order. TRO, temporary restraining order. I checked the camera footage last night this morning. HS and BM's mother had been looking under mats, rocks, and potted plants, the mailbox, and checking the doors. Probably were looking for a spare. I don't keep one on my property, and my dad, grandma, and grandpa have keys they keep with theirs. My uncle did an overhaul of mine and dad's cameras. We now have ones that send notifications to our phones when motion is detected. Also got Ring doorbells for the front and back doors. There are other features and all the cameras are better hidden as well. I went to the police department while he was doing this and brought my grandpa with me. HS was booked for trespassing, but not held very long since BM's mother picked her up from the station. They stuck to the lie of me offering HSA a place to stay and gave statements. Not sure how that's going to go, but I'm taking steps to protect myself, my property, and my dad and his property. HS doesn't have a record beyond this, so this was her first offense. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. It sounds awful, but I had hoped she would have at least one prior because commenters make it seem like that would make the outcome of a permanent RO and TO favorable. BM's mother does have a record, though. Harassment, trespassing, and domestic violence. I shared this with the police as well. Either way, I was able to get a temporary restraining order today, so there's that. I gave the camera footage to the police alongside copies of the texts, printed out and on USB, gave a statement, and they called a judge to get the TRO issued. I talked with them about other things like self-defense recommendations, overhauling my security system, getting a gun for protection, and so on. I was really anxious and just kept talking because it finally hit me that these people know where I live and they're willing to make the 6 hours to harass me and get inside my home. The texts and voice messages haven't stopped. I unblocked and muted. There are direct and indirect threats. BM's mother is adamant that since I have an entire house to myself, a stable job, and no children, I will be housing HS or she'd give me the butt, whopping my dad should. HS has only left one voice message about coming over later today and that she's staying with me because that's what blood does. They help. When there was no response, she sent multiple texts telling me I need to be more understanding, that she's in a tough spot, and that she's moving in for at least a week until she's able to support herself. It's 7 days to gain tenancy here. Additional clarification for people asking about the age gap. I'm a February 1st baby. HS is a November 29th baby. I say exactly 9 months because I'm not counting the weeks and days. I just felt that people knowing we're the same age was relevant and gave context to why I have no relationship with her. I don't know if she was premature. I never asked, to be honest, and there are people saying they have similar gaps around them, so I have nothing to add. Multiple people also asked if I hate HS and that I sound resentful for things she said as a child and for things her parents did. In my first post, I talked to someone in the comments and admitted that had this been a few years earlier, I may have helped HS without much thought. I know as children, she was just parroting her parents. I don't fault her for that, nor do I blame her for BM abandoning me. But it's been 17 years. We've been legal adults for 7 of those years. She would have reached out at any point but didn't and said she had no sister. I also would have reached out at any point but also didn't. I just moved on with my life. I was in therapy since I was abandoned and it took me years to move on from no one on that side actually wanting me. Now she's making herself a problem. DM's mother aside, HS was sitting on my porch with a suitcase ready to force herself into my home and life. She allowed herself to be driven 6 hours to my home, sat on my porch for half an hour, and then lied to police all after I said no multiple times. She never claimed me until she needed something, and now she's forcing herself into my life on the basis of being family. I don't hate her. That's too much energy, but I do resent her now alongside her grandmother and the rest of her family. I was ignored for years, and now I feel unsafe in my own home, just because HS and those around her can't take no for an answer. This isn't about BM's affair. This is about HS and her family ruining my safe space, my home with their crap. The past is a factor in that resentment now because, again, I haven't spoken to her in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like, but suddenly we're sisters because she needs someplace to stay. I definitely resent that. Also, I feel validated in my choices, posting to Reddit, asking for and taking advice, listening to my dad. The attorney I spoke to pretty much said all the same things commenters have. Unblocking and muting to get evidence of harassment. Calling the cops and showing them the messages because it proves there was no implied invitation. This is apparently the biggest thing I had to worry about because even letting us stay on my porch could have worked against me. Giving the cops the camera footage of HS and BM's mother looking for a spare key was also a good move. Even going about upgrading security, getting self-defense items, and asking the officers about self-defense recommendations and my wish to get a gun for protection works in my favor. It shows that even though this was HS's first offense, I don't feel safe, and she's a major cause of that. And I don't. So thank you again for all the advice. If they show up like they said, I'm going to set off my security system and call the cops. Edit from a comment. It wasn't active, the TRO, when I posted the update because they hadn't been served yet. They were found at a hotel near my home and were served. A neighbor saw them and called the police. I was reporting the text, though. The TRO is on both HS and BM's mother. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. DM, entitled Mom. EMK, entitled Mon's Kid. Not a bad kid, the mom's the crazy one. NK, neighbor kid. I was sitting on my front step playing with my kitten. His name is Jack. To start, Jack's super attached to me. His mother was a stray and gave birth in a shed at the corner of our neighbor's property. Within a day, she had moved her litter somewhere else, not uncommon for cats, but she left the runt of the litter behind. Fortunately, I have a lot of experience with kittens, so I ended up raising him. To him, I'm Mom, and while he likes to be petted by others, he does not want to be picked up by anyone else. And then a little girl, maybe 6 or so, stops on a sidewalk with her mother and asks to pet the kitten. Me, sure, just be gentle and don't try to pick up him. EMK is delighted and very gently gives him little scratches, and he loves the extra attention. She says thanks, goes back to her mother, and that's when the trouble started. EMK, Mommy, can I have a kitten? Can I? EM, sure, walks closer to me. Is it a boy or girl? Me, boy. EM, great, we'll just take him home today. To EMK, we'll go to the store on the way home and get some cat food and some toys. Me, you can't have my cat. EM, goes from normal to pissed in a heartbeat. You said she could have it. You can't change your effing mind like that. Me, immediately knows this isn't good, and I stand up holding Jack to my chest. I'm not a big girl, and EM definitely loomed. Me, I didn't say she could have him. I said she could pet him. EM proceeds to drop a lovely string of insults and words not appropriate for a 6-year-old to hear. A couple neighbor kids, about 15 years old, roughly, actually stopped their bikes to watch this woman freak out. I decide I've had enough and turn to go up the porch steps. And that's when EM freaking lunges at me and tries to pull the kitten out of my arms. Jack starts screaming and clawing, and I'm terrified he's going to hurt him. Now, I'm usually pretty easy going and prefer to settle things peacefully. But I also have a very strong protective maternal instinct. So I do the natural thing and punch him in the face. Twice. In short, there was blood, screaming, and the cops were called. She tried to say I stole her daughter's kitten. Thankfully, I had witnesses. The neighbor kids backed me up, thanks kids. EM ended up screaming death threats at me. The neighbor kids, the cops, and even took a swing at a cop. Looking back, it was very satisfying seeing her arrested, but at the time, all I could think about was getting Jack to the vet to make sure the psycho hadn't hurt him. In case you're wondering, I broke EM's nose and one of her front teeth. I still have a scar on my knuckle from her tooth. I feel bad for the little girl. She just asked for a kitten. Edit. For those who would like to see Jack, here's a picture of him when he was young and a picture of him now. There's actually a significant size difference between the two pictures. He's certainly not small anymore. Just ridiculously spoiled. Backstory. I've recently, as in 8 months ago, been diagnosed with agoraphobia, so basically I constantly try to avoid anything that could lead to panic or embarrassment. So whenever I go out, I try to stay close to someone I trust, or if I can't, I try to stay close to any and all exit doors or windows. This is from my personal experience, and this does not apply to everyone with the condition. Please understand that. And I think it's extremely important to note that I am SEM, selective mute, in some situations, but in others, I can just barely speak. One day a few months ago, I was at a store with my best friend and probably the only man I trust. Us both being artists, we were looking for an array of paints and supplies, and he told me that he needed to go to the restroom and to stay there because it was not only close to an exit, but it was also close to the bathroom. I said okay, and he left to do his business. But while I was scanning the shelves for a certain product, I heard the doorbell chime, and in comes our favorite person, Karen, who was followed by a younger girl with natural bright red hair and blue eyes. Karen said something quickly to her kid, and they both parted ways. The nice kid began to walk in the direction of my aisle, and I started to panic a little. When she finally reached it, she walked next to me and started to look for something. After about 40 seconds of looking, she turned to me and politely asked if I knew where a certain paint was found. Me, being a regular of the store, knew exactly where it was, but in that situation I could barely speak, let alone look at her. She realized my state and said, "Oh, take your time," and gave me a smile. After about 40 whole seconds of stuttering and slurring, I finally managed to tell her that it was in the next aisle over. She thanked me and went along with her business. At that time, my friend had just gotten back from the bathroom and saw me talking to the kid and asked me about it and asked if I was all right. After explaining everything, he calmed down, and so had I. We went on with our shopping and we ended up walking next to Karen, and she apparently saw this as the perfect time to ask me about talking to her daughter. And the conversation went like this. "Karen, excuse me. Amazing friend? Yes, ma'am?" Karen, in a somewhat rude tone. "Not you," she points to me. Her. Me? Visibility confused. "Oh, yes, ma'am? Karen, mind telling me why you were speaking to my daughter?" Me, already scared for my life? Ooh. "Oh, I was telling her where something was." Karen, hell no. She cuts me off by raising her hand in front of my face. "You were not telling her anything. You were flirting with her." Now at this point, I realized what she was saying. While I was talking to her daughter, my face had gone red, and it seemed like I was doing more than just giving direction. Me. Oh, no, ma'am, swear. It was harmless. Karen, I don't want some pervert talking to my daughter. Now she had raised her voice quite a bit. I would have started crying right then and there if my friend hadn't grabbed my arm and took over for me. My friend, okay, she wasn't flirting with your daughter, she was helping her. And don't raise your voice. We're talking like normal people, not arguing. Karen, yes, she was. If she wasn't, then why was her face so red? And why did it take her so long, huh? My friend, she goes red when she's nervous and she's got a stutter. Karen, I don't believe that nonsense for 1 second. She was. And here comes her daughter, obviously confused. Nice kid. Hey, Mom, what's happening? Karen, I was telling this pervert to stop flirting with you. That's what. Karen crossed her arms and the kid sighed. Mom, she was helping me? Once again, Karen butts in. Karen, no. I don't believe that lie for a second. I'm not going to let this lesbian ruin my daughter. And that's final. Karen now looks at me and steps closer. And as for you, she pokes my chest, and I nearly faint. Stay away from my. All of a sudden, my friend pulls me back completely and goes off on Karen. Do not touch her, first off, and secondly, she doesn't want your daughter. After that, they both start yelling, and I begin to have a panic attack in the corner. After some time, security is called, and they ask what's going on. Karen says, "This man tried to assault me, like all Karens do." And after about a minute of trying to tell the officer about the rape threats my friend supposedly made, she then turns to me and says, "And that thing touched my daughter? Arrest her?" The daughter cuts, but I can't hear a word. After that, I remember Karen giving me death threats while she was being forced out in handcuffs, and the daughter apologizes. My friend tried to calm me, barely succeeded, and the officer asked if we wanted to press charges. I tell him no, but my friend insists on it, and we end up suing her. I'll start this off by saying my wedding is scheduled for April because my fiancée, 25 female, has always dreamed of a spring wedding. And I really like the idea too. I have an older brother who is 30 male. And last Saturday, I was called over to my parents' house to talk about something. But they refused to tell me what until I got there. They then sat me down with my brother and told me that my brother wants to use my wedding as the perfect day for him to propose to his girlfriend. I was instantly mad and told them absolutely not, but they ganged up on me. I ended up so enraged to the point that I, one man, somehow backed all three of them into a corner. I told them that if they want to do this, then not only will they all be uninvited, but I'll also cut off the financial support I've been giving monthly since they paid to have my golden child brother go through college by taking out a second mortgage. I landed a decently high-paying job and have been sending $500 to my parents monthly to help ease their mortgage. And I didn't ask for a stake in the ownership of their house either because I really don't want it. It was entirely goodwill, and I can cut it off anytime. I left without speaking anything more to them. But my brother came to my home the next day to yell at me that I ruined his big chance because now our parents are siding with me and say they'll evict him if he tries to propose at my wedding. He said I was financially blackmailing our parents and that he just wanted a good chance to propose because he was afraid his girlfriend might leave him soon. I said that was his problem, not mine, because my wedding day is not about him. And if he tries to propose at my wedding, I will have him thrown out. That's not a maybe but a definite, and I doubt his girlfriend would appreciate her proposal followed up with being tossed out by a bouncer. He yelled a few choice words at me, then went crying to our only surviving grandparent, our maternal grandmother, and she called to try and ream me over the phone. No surprise my brother heavily embellished the version of the story he told her. But she still sided with him after I gave her the real story. She tried to hold her ground, but the verbal backlash I ended up giving her left her crying. That got back to my parents, who were pissed at me for taking things so far. But I told them I only went that far because I had to when they were all trying to get me to let my brother use my wedding as his springboard for a proposal. They ended up agreeing with me, but still stated they feel like I'm crass. And my brother showed up at my home again to scream at me that I'm an asshole, and I hope I'm happy with myself for not allowing him the opportunity. My fiancée knows what my brother tried to do, and she's very angry about it. She's almost ready to have him uninvited if he pursues this any further. Normally, I have a very mild temper, but when it comes to certain people like my brother, parents, and grandmother, I can easily get short with them because of all the past favoritism. My grandmother especially. She always sided with my brother and believed his lies no matter what he did. She's the biggest reason my parents favored my brother too. She kept trying to convince me over the phone to let my brother propose at my wedding that I ended up losing it on her. I ended up speaking with my brother again and threatened to tell his girlfriend if he was still intending to propose at my wedding without permission. He took it poorly and called me an awful person. So I pointed out that my wedding isn't about him. Our parents were there for this, and they backed me up. I think my brother did a double take when I did that. My dad pointed out that he'd raised my brother wrong, and that was on him. So from now on, my brother was to show them real respect, and they wanted to get an official lease drawn up for him to pay proper rent and utilities. He was only paying them $300 a month without contributing to any utilities or food. And if he doesn't want to pay, he can move out and they'll rent his room to someone else. My brother turned to our mom for help, but she just agreed with Dad. He looked like he was having a conniption and then left the house. He came back a couple hours later but spoke to no one and locked himself in his room. 2 days later, my brother announced he was moving in with Grandma because she invited him. And our parents basically told him that if he wants to live with her, then to go ahead. My brother responded to this by saying we all hate him for just wanting to propose to his girlfriend. My parents pointed out that it's not that he wanted to propose, but where he wanted to do it. And he'd get no support for it. He's refusing to talk to our parents now. My grandmother did try to call me again. But it ended up with me telling her that my brother will not be allowed to propose at my wedding, plain and simple. So he can get over it or not come. And the same goes for her. I ended up calling her out on her favoritism towards my brother, since we were kids, which she tried to deny at first but couldn't keep doing so because of how much I'd pointed out. She ended up crying again while I told her that if she keeps trying to insist on this, then she won't be coming to my wedding. She begged me not to rescind her invite, but still said she doesn't understand why I couldn't let my brother have his way before ending the call. My fiancé is 100 on my side, and is fully ready to remove my brother and grandmother from the wedding. My grandmother hadn't called again, and she's not talking to my parents either. My guess is my brother went crying to her again to tell her mommy and daddy weren't enabling him anymore. So she offered for him to move in with her. But there's literally nothing she can do to sway me. And I think my last conversation with her made her realize that I didn't wish to tell my brother's chief, but she called me up on a Saturday about a Reddit post. She saw it read in an online video and then realized it might be me with the way I describe my brother and grandmother. So, yeah, now she knows. She ended up tearing my brother a new hole, and he still tried to justify himself to her. That's when she told him they were through and cut all contact with him. My brother, of course, blamed me, even though his girlfriend said that she's been ready to leave him for a while now, and if he tried to propose no matter where, she'd have told him no. So, that's it. My brother showed up at my place one more time to have a fit and said he is boycotting my wedding. He actually thought he had leverage that he and Grandma won't go. I said I wouldn't miss him and that he's in his 30s now and needs to grow up. Our parents have cut the umbilical and are no longer supporting him. And they're already repainting his room to rent it to someone else. And they plan on renting out my old bedroom as well because they need the money after the financial hole he left them in after dropping out of college, just to do mooch off them for a while and then get a degree with online college later, and then barely paying any rent while also making them pay for his food and utilities despite having a good-paying job. They spent the world on him and he wasn't the least bit grateful. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.